Yeah. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Woohoo! Okay. I want that little background music. If it's annoying, let me know and I'll kill it. And I'll be keeping an eye on the chat to see if everyone is okay. Let me just also double check how things are going here on YouTube. It feels like YouTube is also going. There's two people over there. Welcome, everyone. Okay. Doing a quick double check on everything. Welcome, João. Welcome, Diana. Welcome, Raquel. You guys joining us here directly on the stream. I'm just going to look to see if I can find where did I drop my Figma page. Okay, a second. Here we go. And welcome to yet another edition of Dr. Figma. My name is Bruno. I am one of the community leads here at Friends of Figma Portugal. And with me today, I have Dr. Marcelo. Hey, Marcelo, do you want to present yourself a little bit?
Hello, guys. So, yeah, I'm Marcelo. So I'm a UX designer. So most of the things that we're going to see here, I will probably be the dumb guy asking questions because I'm not used to all of those features. But yes, I'm here. Nice to meet you.
And to set the tone. So, as always, these episodes are run based on what you guys need to know versus some central topic. It doesn't mean that we are going to spend the entire episode talking about, in this case, Figma updates, because there's been a lot since the last time that we did one of these. But it means that if you have any question and you really just want your questions answered, those will always take priority. So if you're on the baby link with us live, I see some of you are here, or even if you're on YouTube and just dropping messages on the chat, bring it in, send those messages, let us know what you guys want, what you guys need, and we will stop everything and just be good doctors and heal your ailments. But that's it. So as I said in the beginning, and a little bit as Marcelo already announced that he is not the best person for this, today we're going to be talking about Figma updates. And in case you don't know, there are a lot of updates that Figma launches. Maybe they've been doing around 4 small updates per month. They do these really cool events called release notes. They are a little bit one-sided. So when we have a chance during the Dr. Figma episodes, we try to make it a conversation with you guys. So if you have questions, if you have any thoughts about these, let us know. And we're going to try and go during this hour to a few of them. But again, any question that you guys might have will take precedent. For the people on YouTube, if we don't immediately see, sorry about that. We just need to jump between windows over here while we're streaming, and sometimes it takes a sec. For those of you in the baby link, Susana, Alex, Raquel, Diana, Sofia, and João, you guys can use the Q&A, or all of you have access to camera and microphone. So if you want to join us directly on the stream, just turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and drop a question. We're here to answer all of them. Does that sound good? Cool.
Yes.
Already getting positive feedback as well. Great. Okay. So, João, you already have your camera on. So I'm going to ask you and put you on the spotlight. Do you have a question already or not?
No, I just the camera was already on.
No worries. Just making sure that we're there. Okay, so we ordered some of the updates based on the tools that we have here. So I'm going to start with a couple of updates that Figma launched in December, both for Figma Slides. So Figma Slides is one of Figma's latest tools, in case you don't know. And they keep evolving those new tools even at a faster rate than their existing tools right now, right? So you have Figma, FigJam, Figma Slides, and Dev Mode. And with this suite of tools, Figma is actually growing into this very more robust and complete software suite which is really cool because all of these tools are basically a lot of these like really interesting collaboration tools. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna share this file. All of you guys can have access with editors. So I'm just gonna drop the link for those of you here on the stream, and I'm gonna try and see if I can drop it also on YouTube. Let's see if it works. Hi, João on YouTube, and hi, Fabre. Okay, we already actually have a question from João Conceição on YouTube. Hey, docs, how can we reorder variables on the properties panel on the selected dropdown when applying them? Okay, so I'm going to go directly into that one before we go into the Figma slides updates, because it's actually something that doesn't really work like that. So in case you guys don't know what variables are, let's assume that no one in the room actually knows what variables are. Variables are these very simplistic units in Figma. They are many times mistaken with design tokens, which is even a more confusing type of conversation if you want to talk about that. But essentially, the way that they show on your layers panels is based on how you organize your variables inside the collections here on the variables panel. So to access your collections of variables, when you have nothing selected, you can click here on the right side where it says local variables, that little open variables icon on the right side. Let me try and do something here. Let me see if I can make the UI a little bit. Interface scale. Okay, so it's this. There you go. Bigger. Make it so that everyone can see. So when you have nothing selected, you should be able to see this, and you start creating your variables. Now, variable collections organize in two ways. The way that you order your variables inside a collection. So in this case, we created a collection. We called it My Colors, had a bunch of colors, organized them how we wanted. We can also group them. Let's say that we want these to be the neutrals. We can just group, double click, and call these neutrals. And then we have the group of neutrals, and the same thing with brand colors, new group selection, brand, and now you have all of these like this. Here's the thing. You can reorganize the order of your groups on the left. You can reorganize the order of your variables over here. But last but not least, if you have multiple collections, which is a possibility, and I'm going to create a second collection, and I'm going to call it Your Colors. And I'm going to do something really fast. I'm just going to create a fake color, and I'm going to copy all of these there just so that we have a few colors. Yeah, sorry. There we go. So what happened when I did this? When you're designing and you are going to apply a variable, all of your variables are going to start organizing by two things. The My Colors collection has the My Colors and then neutrals and then brand, because that's how we order them, right? We put neutrals first and then brand second. But the collections are alphanumerical order. So basically you need either using numbers if you want to reorder them, or use them alphabetically. So one of the things that we do at OutSystems, and I also try to do with the groups of Friends of Figma, it's literally just give it a little number in order of importance or use, so that we have that organization. So in this case, let's reverse the order. Let's make Your Colors the first, and then My Colors, we can rename it and make it the second. And now, when you start looking at here, you can see that, oh, actually, no, it's still organized like this. Huh, interesting. So this is new. This wasn't happening the last time that I checked. But in theory, that would be the case. Maybe it's based on date of creation or something like that.
If you refresh,
I think João just got me.
Close it and open again, would that still be the case? That's weird.
Let's do the test. But João just got me on a landslide, because I really thought that I was saying something that was working, because it had worked in the past. But now, let's see. Nope. It's based on order of creation, essentially. So that is something that maybe we need to flag to Figma. If you guys see this as a problem, don't forget to use the forum.figma.com. I'm just going to drop that link here. And in case you don't know, the Figma forums literally just updated. So it's a really cool new experience that you guys can use. and you can just drop these there and bring it to their attention that you want better ways to order collections and libraries. I know that libraries usually are ordered by name, so that's for sure something that happens. And then there's also some sort of thing that happens with the libraries where they also order via the team that you're working out of. So I feel like the libraries on the team supersede the libraries on the org, for example, if you have an org or enterprise account. But that's it. But yeah, like inside variables, you can use all of this, so you can reorder them really easily on the collections and everything. But apparently, what I thought was the correct answer right now it's not, which is the order of how they then organize inside the system doesn't work. It might also have something to do with the fact of how many variables we're using. And on this document, we're actually just using the variables on one of the collections, which is the My Colors collection. So that might also affect, but yeah. But yeah, João sent me that's it, Bruno. I think it's based on creation date. Sorry, João, I would love to be more helpful, but apparently this was the best that we could do. Okay. With that in mind, and since I'm just going to check the Q&A, there's no questions on the Q&A. There doesn't seem to be any questions right now on the chat, and neither on YouTube. Hi to the 5 people on YouTube. We're now going to look into the latest updates on slides. So one of the things that Figma has been doing that is really cool, in my opinion, like they've been trying to make it so that you can better work between different tools. And one of the first things that they did with updates of slides is they created this option to move your frames into Figma slides more easily. So this was already possible, right? Like if you designed, like a lot of us designed our slides before in Figma, you would basically just copy your frames, paste them on Figma slides, and it turns immediately into a deck. But what Figma did was, and you'll notice this in 2 places. If you have a presentation, and you can see here, we have this presentation about the Figma's latest updates, and then it has stuff like this slide that I don't know, says iPhone only because, you know, Android friends get pissed, but who is designing for Android really? Just kidding. And this very interesting AI generated interface for web 5.0 because 2.0 is bad, 3.0 is doomed, and 4.0 doesn't sound as good as skipping a whole goddamn generation just for fun. You see, content is our passion, or not. But yeah, like we have the slides, they are ready to go, they are easy to use. So if you basically select all of your slides, on the top right corner, you can immediately see copy to Figma slides. And if you click on it, Figma will pick all of those slides in the order that you have from the X to Z axis. So top, bottom, left, right. And it literally just picks all of those and creates a new slide presentation for you. So they are literally just built into Figma slides. You can edit them using the Figma slides styles. You can understand also here that says here, we automatically generated text and color styles. You can see them right here. And then it also has this as if you want to create a template, you can also use this. And this is the second update that we're going to be talking about. So you can see all of our decks are here. And because it imported all of our brand colors and fonts and everything, you literally can just use the randomizer to generate the new styles and play around with your styles very easily. So it's very fast integration and it just works. And if you guys haven't used Figma slides yet, I always say this: if you like the way that Google Slides kind of is accessible, but then you love the animations on Figma slides, on Figma that it's much more close to what you would do, for example, on a PowerPoint, which is much more powerful, well, then Figma slides is really, really good. And it has one very interesting advantage, which is it can update in real time. Now, Marcelo, you had left a comment here saying that you are getting some reports that this behavior is possible that it is inconsistent.
Yeah,
right?
Because the thing is, I was trying to, so all of the slides that you have here in Figma, my expectation is that if I select all of them, I would see the button on the top right saying, send it to Figma slide or something like that.
Copy to Figma slides, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have that button. I don't know it's why, because I'm not the creator of the slides, but I've seen people on the forum saying that they don't see it as well.
I'm going to question if you're selecting the slides or if you're selecting the example.
I'm selecting these slides. I selected one by one, and
it
it's
still
not
doesn't
there.
show up.
Still doesn't show up for me.
Interesting. Okay, so that might be an inconsistent. And again, you did the right thing. You went through the forum. You saw the forum Figma copy to Figma slides button missing. If I replace my screen sharing, and you guys give me a second here, I'm gonna share the full screen so I can show you guys also the forum thing. So give me a second here. You can see here all of these posts and the copy to Figma slides not really showing up correctly. You have all of this information here, which is not bad, good enough for you guys to look at. But yeah, it is something that can happen, apparently. But there's also another thing that I think helps you understand how Figma is thinking. If you go to the frames tool, and if you go to presentation, they immediately say if you might want to be starting it on Figma slides, because the presentation slides that I have here, they know that it's easier there. Like, they are pushing you to do the presentations on Figma slides, and I feel like it's also very product driven, but it is a very simple thing. Okay, I'm going to give just a quick update on the second one, which is when they launched Figma slides, still didn't have a lot of options for updates, but now you can actually just templates, in this case, that's what I meant. Now you can actually manage your Figma styles, and that was something that you got here immediately. Like, if you come here and you click on the drop down, you can click on any one of these styles that come directly in the deck, edit them, and then you can even call whatever you want to your custom style. And once that's ready, based on the slides that you have designed, you can come here to the drop down and say publish template, and you're publishing a template to your teams. We actually have done that already for the Friends of Figma. So if I come here to our Dr. Figma document, I actually have this Dr. Figma slide template. And as you can see, I basically did the same deck that we had there, but without information. It's ready to use, super simple. We can just copy or start from this thing. I named it Dr. Figma on the styles. I gave all the styles correct sizes, and I added my colors. I kept it all ready, and then I published my template. If I click on Publish Template, you can also upload a custom thumbnail. You publish it to your entire team, in this case, or organization. And then let's give it a second. Okay. And then if you want to start a new deck, and here you can see view template, Dr. Figma slide template. Okay. So that's it. Really simple, super easy to use. And if you click on it, you basically get all of those slides that I had designed as initial templates. Okay, Sophia says something here on the chat. There's one major downside with Figma slides, though. In a regular Figma slide, you can have endless pages with different pitches, but in FigJam, you're limited. In Figma slides, in this case, I'm guessing, you're limited to a single file, which means you end up creating multiple separate projects. Yes, I understand that. No worries, Sophia. I understand that. I understand that, like, it takes a little bit of the experience, but I feel like that comes on the logic of purpose driven, right? Like, if you are someone that, much like me, don't really use any speaker notes, then fine, do your presentations on Figma. You even get some degree of other detail in terms of prototyping that might allow you to do crazier things with your presentations. But for the average user that might need speaker notes, that might want to have this templatization of slides and everything, I think it feels like Figma slides is much more a tool that matches the expectations. And it might also not be that it's a designer first tool, but more of a let's pull it like colleague first tool for anyone else in the project. But again, you can use it. It can do some things that others don't. For example, if you want to have multiple prototypes in different slides, you can with Figma slides, right? The template that I have here, if we want to load more than one prototype, we can just click on live interaction, prototype, and then just choose whatever prototype we want and add it to the document really fast, you know? But yeah, I get what you're saying. And I feel like these purpose-driven tools sometimes like everyone has a little bit of a different thing, but yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just delete this because I don't need another untitled document on my folders. And just gonna go back here, and we're gonna go to our second update, unless any of you guys remember that they have a problem that they want to talk about. Let's see. No one is saying anything on the chat. At least not on Figma. Not on. Okay, no worries. If you guys want, you can always drop that and we'll stop everything and just help you. Okay, second update. And this is a very simple one. Okay. In case you missed it, Figma actually launched the horizontal scrolling on layers. This is a very simple thing. And I feel like it's one of those things that a lot of people complained about because we know that the layers panel is not gigantic. So if you want to read whatever is here, like 1 or 2 or 3, 4 levels, maybe you can do. But if it goes a little bit beyond that point, you can't. So what I did was I actually used Figma AI to generate a little UI here so that we could see an example. And as you can see, the titles are already going a little bit beyond the level, and you already have a little scroll bar here that will give you the notion of where you are. And you can see that even if it goes more and more into the right side, you can still come here and navigate really fast. If you have a mouse like I have with an horizontal scroll, simple enough. It's just a utility thing, but it's super interesting and super simple. Now, Marcelo, you also had dropped a comment over here, right?
Yes, I did. And it's more like a question for the chat. Is how does that work when, because I have the magic mouse where it's just like it's touch screen, right? So I can do like the scrolling sideways. How does that work with the regular mouse where you have the little balls?
So unless you have a side scroll like I do, you always have to click and drag on the little bar on the bottom, basically.
Okay.
It's the only option, but it is standard in terms of industry practices. I don't feel like it's a critical thing, but it is something that I know that not everyone is like super like happy about.
Yeah.
But
There's no
it
like
still
shortcut, right?
is.
If you hold shift and do the normal scrolling, it doesn't scroll sideways. At least I don't
It
think so.
might. Let me see. Let me see. For example, if you start clicking on enter and going to more, no, it doesn't automatically scroll.
Okay.
It just opens things and like you can see them here and like you can scroll. You need to have either a side scroll or click on the bottom, but there's no other option other than that. But again, I feel like this is already a plus because before you couldn't. So if you have very complex components and things like that, and by the way, don't do very complex components. You don't need very complex components. You need just enough complex components. But if you have something like that where you start having a lot of layers, it makes sense that having this as a tool would eventually become a thing. So I feel like that one is super simple, but it's a really good one. Another one that is also super simple is actually the improvements to frame presets. This one was a big one when it launched, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but this one is really interesting. So they have 3 different updates. The first things first is, for example, if I go to the Your Paints page that doesn't have anything, the first frame that we drop is always dropped on the 0 axis. So it starts, the axis moves with the first frame, and that becomes 0.0. So for those people with OCD that are starting the design and their first frame is like in random coordinates anywhere, if you have an empty canvas and you put a first frame, that first frame marks the 0.0 coordinate, and that's where it's going to be. It's an interesting thing from Figma side, and it's something that I didn't think it would be that like called for, but apparently this was like one of the most upvoted forum posts. So I'm like, okay, cool. So that's the first one, which is a really simple thing, but it's super fun. The second one is actually that now when you create a new frame, and let's say that we wanted to work for an iPhone, for example, we create the iPhone 16, and that was our latest frame. So now if we click on the frame tool, you get the 100. Sorry, that's not what I meant. You don't choose a size. You design the size that you want. That's what I meant. Yeah. And then if you click on it, automatically it should generate. It's breaking. Okay. Today is the day for the bugs. Figma teams, if you're listening to this, it's not working. Apparently, the idea is if you click on the canvas to add a new frame, Figma will default the size of the last used frame in that file. So in theory, if we do this, if we click on frame and click on this, it's working outside of sections, but not in the sections. In the sections, it's automatically doing 100 by 100. But like this should like facilitate the creation of like new slides or new frames with the same size. But apparently it's not working on sections, which is interesting, but I need to give that note to Figma. And then the last update is actually if you're working on a flow, for example, and you want to create new layouts or test out new layouts with the frame tool selected and with your frame selected, you now get these little options here. And what they do is they allow you to essentially duplicate the new frame so you can test out versions or continue the flow of design without having to create all of these again or copy and paste or duplicate. It's much more of like a natural thing. You're going to see that it tries to understand which frame you were trying to copy between the two of them. Since this one was the first and this one is the second, it duplicated this. So it's just simplification in the process of generating slides, generating frames. Sorry about that. And it's really just a really quality of life update, really simple one, but just kind of works. Bye, Marco. Have a good time. Okay, so let me just check on YouTube, see if there's anything else in terms of chat. And I think I just opened something that I didn't want to. I don't see any new messages. And what about you guys here on the live stream? Sofia, Diana, Raquel, Susana, Tomás, João, Vitor, all of you guys, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them on the chat, Q&A, or open your camera and microphone, and we're here to listen to your issues. Okay, so we already went to Figma slides, horizontal scroll, and frame presets. Now we're going to talk about the few updates that happened in variables. So these actually happen in two layers. If you look at the way that variables were being applied in terms of, let's call it styles, when you were designing, variables could only be applied to full color elements. You couldn't apply them to gradients until very recently. Now that's possible. So you can actually have a gradient that uses variables, meaning that if you, for some reason, decide to change the variable, and your gradient will also change based on the color that you had saved. So you can have gradients like this, where I have my colors. I'm just going to go back here. And you can see here on the build that these use sky and fall things. Okay. Okay. And essentially we have this, and we also have the honey and brick thing. Like this, these colors are working. If for some reason you change your variables, and we can come here and say, okay, I want my honey to be a little bit more yellow light thing, you're going to see that also affecting the way that the gradient looks, right? It changes. It's soft. Maybe I should have changed it to a very different color. I can come here and do that. I can just like, I don't know, let's say that honey is dark and blue. You can see that the color like fully changed. It's easy enough to do. And not only does this make it so that you can more easily build your gradients this way and not have these issues like this has been for a while, but now on dev mode, you also get that information, right? So you get linear gradient, and then you get the variables here for the developers to know that those are the colors that they are using. Now, this is something that it's mostly for teams. We have more solid design systems usually. What tends to happen with a lot of the teams that are smaller or like agencies, they just use styles. They don't really dabble a lot with variables, but this gives you a lot more control and language and everything like that. But that's interesting. Okay, now I have another question that doesn't have to do with this, but has to do with variables. So I think I'm just going to jump from this update to that. And the question is from Rui Bogas, and I'm just going to try and copy it and put it here on the slide where on the Your Pains document. And I should have created a text box that is limited inside. So give me a second here. Okay, Rui asks, let's say I have a design system for all company products where some are just web, some mobile, and others both. Can we define which viewports will we see for each product through variables? Not really right now. So you can use, there's also this thing. So there's two things. You have variables and you have another thing in Figma that has a very similar name that are called variants. So variants are actually component variants. And variables are these individual values that give you control of a specific string of text, basically. And that string of text can be one of four things. If I come here to my local variables, you can see that I can create a color code, a number, an actual string of text, or a Boolean, which is a true-false option, which in theory, it still is a text that says true or false. And these are variables because they are also controllable even via prototypes, for example. Okay, so variables will allow you to do a bunch of things, but not control like which viewports you can actually use on web and mobile and everything like that. Variants, on the other end, will allow you to design and document which parts of your product are for each of these tools. So essentially what you can do through variants is, let's say that we have, I'm going to create a little card, like an hello world title thingy. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of a text here, auto layout, bit of padding, corner radius. We have our brand color, so we're going to put our background in green. We're going to put our fonts here with the snow. That's it. And let's say that this is our card. And you want it to have different behaviors for different devices, for example. What you can do through variables and variants is very different. So in variants, you basically can create a component of a card. I just used the shortcut. That's also something that I can turn on. So I'm going to turn on my keycaster so you guys can see when I'm pressing certain keys. Let's see if this works. There we go. And keycaster is on. So Shift A, and you can see that Shift A would make this an auto layout, and then Command Option or Command Alt on Control Alt on Windows with the K will make a component. Once you have a component, this little button that happens here on the top that says Add Variant will allow you to create a copy. And then let's say that this version has a smaller title size and smaller paddings because you have less space, because this would be the mobile variant. So the best way that I could put it is you can use the properties here on the top right corner. Say that this is the device or viewport, which was the language that you used, and then assign this to desktop and this to mobile. And when you're basically applying this, you can just choose which version you feel that it works best. Now, this can also have this can also be done or can be changed through variables, but in variables, it's much more like a computing thing. You would be creating variables that affect certain parts of your design system based on the variable mode on your collection. So if I go here on my local variables, I'm going to create a new collection and I'm going to call it viewports. And on this collection, I'm going to create a few things. I'm going to create a title size. Wait, sorry, I used a number, right? Yeah, that's it. So I need a number for my title size. I need a number for my title weight, for example, for the font weight. And I'm going to do another number for my body font size, and last number for padding, for example. And then over here, where it says value, you can then choose, for example, desktop, and create a couple of other modes. Call this one tablet and this one mobile, and assign values that are based on this. So now you can say, okay, I want my titles to be 24 on tablet and desktop, but then on mobile they're going to be 20 pixels. And the weight on these is going to be 700, and on mobile it's going to be 800 because it's smaller, but I want it to be stronger. Same with body size, we can keep like 16, and then here maybe 14, and then the padding can be 24, 16, and 8. These values, if applied as variables to your styles, to your fonts, everything, can then change based on the collections. So if I create, and I'm just going to do a different thing, I'm just going to copy this here. I'm going to basically separate it, make the detached instance, okay? I'm going to add a little image here. And I'm going to adjust that through the padding, make these two with a little bit of a different padding. I'm not going to explain this part a lot, just going to use a plugin to drop an image here. I love the Unsplash plugin because you can just click on the presets and insert random, and it just loads an image. So yeah. And now what you can do is, for example, on our titles, instead of using this font size, you can click, look for the variable button and apply title size. Same thing here. Look for the apply variable option here on the bottom and apply title weight. On the body font, I'm just going to apply that to font size, so body size. And then on the padding here, I am going to use the same option. What this does is that you now can use variable modes, and you can control those on many different places. If you want to change your mode for the whole page, you can change your variable mode here. You can see the little like Pantone palette thingy over there. And you can choose which version you want, and this will affect the font and the padding. You can see there the size is changing automatically. Or if you don't want to apply it to the whole document, you can apply it to the specific frame. In this case, we have the card frame, and you can choose the viewports and adjust those values by changing your collection. Or even if you want to do something that I always find it really fun that Figma allows you to do, is keep it automatically and use sections, which is this version of Figma that allows you to do a lot of these things. And I'm going to make this one desktop, this one tablet, and then this one mobile. And you can assign on the, if you put the card inside of them first, or if you apply a color from the collections or a size from the collections, it needs that to happen. You can assign what you want. So in this case, this one is desktop, this one will be tablet, so I can change this on appearance to tablet, and this one here to mobile. And you can see the card changing as I change the section it is, because it's basically inheriting the collections from each one. This is a really good way to test your components, test your content. You can also use variable modes for colors. Let's say that right now I can just come here to our local variables, and on my colors, call this light mode, create a new dark mode, switch a few colors up and down, just gonna like flip the color codes. So you need to have a variable applied in the section for it to actually offer the option of changing to, for example, tablet. If you don't have any variables inside this section, even if it's a color or something, this from the appearance won't show up. And in this case, for example, I'm going to choose for the dark mode, and you can see that even the colors change, because now this section has dark mode tablet as the options. Like if I use the, for example, use my, let's call it the snow color as a background, you can see that now all of them always have the option to change collections. So you just need to have a variable applied to it. But you can see here, like this is the best you can probably do with variables. With variants, you create components and you document them based on where you feel like they should work. On variables, you can do this. What are other stuff that you can also do? If you want, for example, to define a maximum width for your component, you can also do that. So on the variables, on the collections for viewports and desktop, you can choose a number, call it max width or wherever you want, and say that on desktop, this can be 540, on tablet, it can be 320, and on mobile can be 240. And you can then, let me just make these a little bit bigger so that I can actually showcase how that works. You can then apply maximum width to your components, apply the variable called maximum width, stretch your card. I can start here, and you can see that as it changes, it also changes to the maximum width allowed. When you go back, it loses the width, but like here you can have a gigantic card, here you can only have a 320, here you can only have a 240. So you can use variables in this sense. You can use variables to create all of these controls is possible. It's just that it is closer to, you start getting closer to less designing, more programming. That's why usually a lot of this work is done through design systems teams or design ops teams, which are teams that actually have a lot of stuff that you need to build for a bunch of projects and everything like that. And you can even use this for content. Like when Figma launched this, one of the things that it did is that they basically created language variables, and they had like collections where the content would change according to the section that you're in. And you can do that. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can use variables for, including, again, as I said, prototyping, because in prototype, you can do stuff like if you click on the image, you can say trigger and click, and then you can actually say set variable mode and change to light mode or dark mode. And if you go to your prototype now, it changes to dark mode if you click on the image. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do with the variables. And I didn't have to design it in dark mode. I just had to create the computing on the background, like the logic that leads you to go from point A to point B. So it's interesting. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do. But I would say that it really depends on the use case of your company and the use case of your components. But yes, of course, you can use variables and variants to do this type of stuff. Okay.
I have a question.
Go, Marcelo. Tell me.
So as you said, we can do like a lot of stuff, almost like infinite stuff with the variables and variants combined. But from your experience, what is the best practice on the level that we can go when documenting stuff? Because, for example, when I see things on YouTube, people show the example that you show, like they build a prototype and they keep pushing the prototype to the mobile, pushing the prototype to the desktop, and changes, like very quickly and almost like magic. But I feel like if we do that on documenting a design system with, like extends documentation, it eventually would broke sometimes, and it would break every component that I have. It would break my whole library. So what is the level of usage that you recommend?
That's a very hard question, because here's the thing. Depending on the complexity of your team and your product, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, right? I am working on a brand level, right? My work worries about having solutions for this from the brand down. I work very closely with design systems teams for a product that is very dense and has a bunch of variables and variants and little things that you can change. Now, the complexity should only be as much as you know that it's not becoming harder than actually coding or developing your software. So even for documentation, a lot of displays of like showing how easy it is to change, like I don't use sections to do this all the time. What I would most likely do is I would create my component, I would test it out, and then I most likely will build the UI or the specs sheet already with the mode selected, so that I don't have to do it again and again and again. The advantages of doing this is more on then the other parts of the system that you're also working with. Variables are very developer friendly. So if you look into the way that variables work, even on edit variable, you're going to see that you have stuff like the naming the scope of where they can be used, and you can literally just limit them to be used either just on text, just on sizes or whatnot. And developers can even have their own versions of code syntax, like their CSS classes, their Android code, their iOS code that like aligns with this. And if I'm not mistaken, on dev mode, I don't remember if it's on components or if it's directly on variables. So you're gonna give me a second here. In teams that have org, developers can even have their own like live code attached to this through the dev mode and the GitHub component, the GitHub connections, and the Visual Studio Code connections, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. The thing is, like, the complexity really needs to be based on what you and your team need to work. Never go crazy with things. I feel like that's the problem. Like, a lot of us try to do a lot of these things and just build and build and build new software, like little bitties, and then you create a lot of legacy components, a lot of stuff. It's just understanding the balance of like the right amount of control versus the right amount of elements. Mafalda Barato from OutSystems does a few talks on this because of the stuff that they learned when building our design systems for the product, and they have to choose where they would not go into this complexity level and just drop, because like it doesn't make sense. Like, it just becomes too confusing for people to use, too hard to maintain for the developer, for the design systems team. Like, it's literally a balancing act. So it's more about what you start seeing that you can use or not. If you're on a Figma org team, that can also be using the Figma analytics for your design system and understanding what components and styles and colors whenever are used or not, and then just drop the ones that you know are not, or reinvent them. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do. But that's it. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm going to go really fast to the exports. And again, we have about 13 minutes or so on the stream. So again, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, don't hesitate on dropping them. Okay. Another updates that you have actually is on the exports. So Figma historically has been very bad on this because essentially it's a very simple export and all of our files tend to be very high quality and dense. But on February 10th, they launched an update that now when you're exporting images, and let's say that you're exporting this thing here, on the PNG, you can actually use image resampling, basic or detailed, to control the amount of quality that you want to have on this. So if I click here and I have already two exports, one is basic, one is detailed. Let's see if I can export them. Just gonna drop it on my downloads, bring them back in, and that's here. They already have the surname, so I can see. So let's see if I can do something like this. And you start going into the details. You can kind of see that the right one feels a little bit less sharp than the left one, especially like on parts like here. So it will reduce a little bit the quality of the export on the basic downsampling. Like, it's just so that your files are not as heavy when you export them, and it's kind of like a compression by default. This might be good, might be bad. Like, we don't know. It's one of those things that kind of just, you'll never know how much time it will save or not. There's also another thing like this that, if you guys ever missed it, exists on the little file option. You can export the entire set of frames as PDFs. I do this when I want to do PDF documents in Figma. And on that export, you can already choose the quality of your PDF, high, medium, or low, and it will increase or reduce the compression that it's going to do in your file. Figma PDFs are notably very, very heavy. Like, I have some 10-page PDFs on the 100 megabytes size. So this is really cool. And the other update that they did on exports is that on the past, SVG exports couldn't handle some of the native effects that Figma has, like the diamond and angular gradients and background blurs. Now they do. So if you export something like this, and try to use it in SVG code, it wouldn't be working good in any good way. Now it is, so you can literally just copy it as SVG or export as SVG, and the code will make it so that this literally loads the same effects directly onto your design. Are two really simple things, but they are really good because it means that you can actually do more complex SVGs and still expect them to behave on live code as they are behaving on Figma. Okay, so I see that Ricardo Villardi and Vitor Afonso have their cameras on. I'm just going to put them on the spotlights and say, do you have questions before we end the live?
No, it's all good. Thank you.
All good as well. Send me the record because you are too fast, Ninja.
I know.
Yeah.
No worries. That's why we're also keeping it. It's already on YouTube. So the moment that we stop here, it's going to be live on YouTube. So you guys can immediately go and check it back out. We always try to do that so that you guys have access to it. Okay.
Great.
Last but not least, the one last big update that we're going to be talking about is aspect ratio. We're going to mention some of the other updates, but some of them are not as relevant for everyone. All of these that we shared are essentially working for everyone or for most people, so we should be fine. Aspect ratio. So we're used to having this little lock control on Photoshop, on Illustrator, and a lot of softwares, but it kind of just works for a very specific thing, which is when you're handling your documents directly or designs directly and manipulating little details. Figma updated that so that you actually can lock aspect ratio, and it will still work not just when you're resizing by hand your documents, but also when you're, for example, working with components and auto layout. So what this means is that right now, for example, I have this component here that it's my movie titles card, and I have my movies list. And this is a grid layout that I have set up using the auto layout with the wrap feature. And you can understand that when you move it like this, what's happening is that this image is locked on aspect ratio. If I turn it off, the result would be something like this. The images are set to having a fixed height and fill width. So they're always going to try to fill the space, but the images are always changing format, and you get these really weird results where the cards shift a lot in shape and the photos are cropped in ways that you don't want. If we turn on the component side aspect ratio, you're going to see that all of our images are going to basically become a little bit like they are rescaling automatically so that they always keep the same format and they don't break. So this makes it so that the lock on width height that you used to have in the past, now it's much more functional. It doesn't only control to this level where, for example, if I have the shape here and I want to use it, it just locks. It will also work with stuff like this, where our layouts are basically controlled, locked, easy enough to do here. Okay. And that was like the last one. Now we have a quick round of updates that not everyone is going to have access to. A lot of them might not be relevant to everyone, but they are interesting updates. And then I'm going to tell you where you guys can always stay tuned to all of these updates. Okay. So first one is libraries. If you haven't noticed, or if you don't use that many libraries in Figma, Figma redesigned the entire libraries modal in November. So if you turn on the libraries modal, which is one that shows up when you click the little libraries icon here, now you're going to see that it has a lot more detail than it did in the past. You have the ones that are in this file, you have updates if you have anything that was missing. Now as a dedicated tab, it's clearer. You can also go to recommended if you have any recommended libraries, the libraries in your teams, the ones that you have access to, and the UI kits that Figma has available. At any point in time, you can also just search for them. And if you're checking a library, you can just click on publish your own library. You can check what a library that you're using has. And if you have missing libraries and you click on it, it will tell you that this is where they are missing, what type of libraries are missing, and you're going to try and replace the ones that you have with the issues, right? Like Rack'n'Burr, these things. You can find libraries or connect with other new libraries to replace. All of this already existed, but now it's cleaner and more in line with the UI 3, which is the latest update on Figma's UI. Then for the people who have org accounts, we actually have an update on library analytics. So two things. One is for those who actually want to get the library analytics into their own tools, Figma's APIs now allow you to access basically that information through the API. And that means that if you have a team in-house that wants that information to be served to other tools, if they want to use that information to gather something on other platforms or anything like that, now you actually have access to direct data and data points from your library analytics. And in-app library analytics also evolved, because one thing that they didn't have for a long time was styles and variables. It only had components. Now they also have styles and variables. So you actually can understand how many times people used colors, font sizes, whatever specific variables you're looking for. All of that now is also available on library analytics. So that's really good for teams. Figma AI Beta now actually has two different things that you can actually use if you need. First one being you can find community assets directly on the insert. So the AI is going to look for like home icon, look through all of the community assets, try to figure out where it is and give you options. So you don't really need to go and look for a specific file and duplicate it there, all of that file to just get an icon. It literally goes through all of these community assets and gives you options. So you can just click on one of them, insert, and then it will be connected to that community icon. And you get the little option here where it says community page. So really good for really fast search. It basically essentially gives you access to all of the files that you have on the community really fast. And you don't really have to duplicate them again anymore or anything like that. It's still in beta. It's only for those who have Figma AI, so that's it. The second one, and this one wasn't working last time that I checked, is an option to boost image resolution. I haven't been able to use it, so I'm gonna guess that it's still not available here. But it's available on other tools that I tested out. But it's not a native Figma, might be in slides and things like that, but it is a very interesting thing because Figma has been doing this really cool thing where these AI tools are very complementary and not just chat-based like a lot of other competitors and a lot of other things that you see in the market. One of them that I really like, and you can see it here on aspect ratio, is if you want to create more content, you can literally just click and drag, and it will generate a bunch of new cards with content based on what it gets from the content you have there. Like, this is super cool, and I really love this. So I can then just do fill container again, and now I have a bunch of new cards. It doesn't generate images, but it generates text. It also affects other details, but right now it's just doing this. But it's really cool that you can do stuff like this so fast with these AI tools, having functions like making sure that your images have a higher resolution. Super interesting. Still don't have access to it here, but it's super interesting. There's a bunch of updates also to the plugin and REST APIs. So now you have a bunch of new tools if you develop plugins, including annotations and measurements can be created through the plugin API. You can use rich text formatting for component description. So if your plugins can read and edit these things. And then also now through the plugins, you can also access the interactions and the prototyping tools that didn't exist in the past. So now you can actually create plugins that affect the prototyping tools or the prototypes that you're building, which is a super interesting thing. If you have that technical ability of building plugins, it means that you can actually make more than basic stuff. For example, one of my favorite plugins that I use a lot of times is this plugin called Prototype This, which just picks a bunch of frames and does like connect all of them like left to right, top to bottom, which I used, for example, to make presentations in the past. With this, that means that a lot of those plugins also can use a bunch of other cool stuff. And they might end up being complementary to Figma's own AI tools, because Figma has the Add Interactions AI tool that does a lot of that too also. So that's going to be super fun. And that's it. It's 6 p.m. and we're on the last slide, which is the figma.com/release notes. That's where I got all of this information. So you too can get it. If I click on the link here and I just gonna drop it also on your feeds. Let's see if there's something Yep, there's something new already since the last time that I came here. So I'm just gonna drop the link to the Figma release notes to the chat so that you guys have access to it. But as you can see, last time that I was here, we were on February 12th, and we have the SVG export fixes. There's already 3 new updates, which is they're changing the combination on FigJam's top level navigation. There's new tags on community resources, and I actually had a few files from myself already adapted by these. These have been, some of them have been adjusted by AI, but basically make it so that you can more easily find content on your community. And for people with billing and admin settings, so people who own teams, now there's a lot of more options, like a tab that gives you a high-level overview of your plan, a tab where you can review your invoices, and on Enterprise, a tab for billing groups that enable admins to drill in and navigate specific billing group page. I know that this is boring for most people. For me, this is amazing because I'm one of the admins on my org. So there's a lot of detail there to control the costs. So that's it for today's episode of Dr. Figma. I hope that you guys enjoyed all of these little things. I hope that I could help people like you, Rui, that I know that you're seeing us on YouTube and you're also here at the file. So I really loved your question. It was really cool. So we're going to have a next episode on the 27th, fully in Portuguese. We always do an English and a Portuguese one so that if you're more comfortable with the Portuguese content, or if you understand better in Portuguese, that's going to be it. I'm going to be back here next week, and joining me will be Marco Duarte, also from Friends of Figma Portugal. And if you ever have any other questions, or if you ever need something like this, don't hesitate to join us on the Friends of Figma Slack, Friends of Figma Portugal Slack, and I'm going to try and get the link to it really fast to put on the chat too. So if you guys give me a second here, I can just invite people, copy invite link, and I'm going to drop it on the chat on both platforms so you guys can join our Slack. And if for some reason that's not enough, skip for now. There's also, in case you don't know, mostly for people who are beginners or are looking for the early stage support, we have a global Friends of Figma Discord. It has a lot more people on there at all times, so it might also be interesting for you guys. I don't remember if we actually had the link for this one. Invite people, there you go. And I think that's it. So I'm also going to drop a link. Hidden use copy button. Okay, I clicked on copy and it didn't really copy. Let's see. Nope, it's not copying. Interesting. But you can find our Discord on there's a page. I probably can send that afterwards on the follow-up. But yeah, you can see that there's a bunch of people here. There's a lot more people ready to answer your questions at any point in time. So don't hesitate to join the Discord if you ever feel like it. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on the stream today. And if you ever have any questions, or if you ever have any other concerns, don't hesitate to join one of the streams or just drop a message on the Slack. We're always trying to help everyone with their questions. And if it's not us, a lot of other amazing community members are ready to do so. Thank you, everyone.